Hello everyone and welcome to the Mylio Photos coffee break. My name is Angela Andrew and today we're going to be talking about essential maintenance you can do with your Mylio Photos library for some spring cleaning. We're going to go over DeDupe, DeClutter, some of my favorite quick collections to clean things up, and we're going to talk a little bit about creating a habit of keeping things tidy as you go along, because all of us, as we're bringing new media in from our phones and so forth, we're constantly creating new stuff. So keeping up on the maintenance is really important. And yes, you could do it all in a spring cleaning bout, but sometimes I think doing it maybe monthly or quarterly might be a better thing. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Before we get into today's topic, I do want to let you know that next week we will not have live Q&A or coffee break. I'm going to be at a conference with the photo managers, and these are professional photo managers, people that we work with to do our concierge program. So if you've ever worked with a professional photo manager, we've got a great relationship with these people, and we are going to their conference next week. So that's where I'm going to be. So no live Q&A next week, no coffee break. We will be back the following week at our regular schedule. And the following week's topic for coffee break will be how to tell where your originals are stored. And this might seem like a really simple topic for some of you who have been with us for a really long time, but we're getting a lot of new users, and the concept of where Mylio puts stuff is really important. So we're going to kind of go back to some of the basics because everybody should know where their originals are. So that will be coffee break, not next Friday, but the following Friday. So no live Q&A, no coffee break next week, picking back up with the regular schedule the following week. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into today's presentation. And let's talk about some essential maintenance to spring clean your photo library. Let me go ahead and maximize this here on my screen so that'll look a little bit better. And let's jump in. So the things we're going to talk about today are going to be removing exact duplicates from your library with Photo DeDupe. We'll talk about finding similar images, which are burst mode images, with Photo DeClutter. We'll look at managing screenshots and other accidental photos with some of the cleanup quick collections. We can touch on culling with QuickReview. I actually meant to take that bullet point out of there because I pulled the slide out because that was just a little bit too much to cover in a coffee break. And we're going to talk about building a regular cleanup habit. So if you guys want more information after this about QuickReview, just let me know and we can answer some questions. But with that, let's go ahead and talk about why this is important to spring clean your library, or, like I said, to have a regular habit. Because a cluttered photo library makes it really hard to find what you're looking for. Common sources of clutter that we're going to talk about today are going to be your duplicates, burst mode images, screenshots, accidental or temporary shots. And those temporary shots are the ones that I'm talking about, like you're walking through the big box store and you're like, hey, that thing looks interesting. You take a picture of it so you remember the price. And, 2-3 weeks later, a month later, you're like, either I don't need that before anymore, or I already bought it. And those pictures are no longer necessary. Regular cleanup gives you less stress and more enjoyment. So with that, let's go ahead and start off with Photo DeDupe. For those of you who have never used this, what it does is it finds exact duplicates in your library, even things that have different names or locations, and locations being different folders in your library. The matches are based on the size and resolution. They can have the same name but be in a different folder. They can have different names, and they can have different metadata. There's a tool inside of DeDupe called Auto Check that can help you quickly select the best file to keep. And once you've chosen which file to keep and which one to get rid of, Mylio will merge the metadata from the ones that you're getting rid of into the ones that you're keeping. So you're not losing any of that precious data that you might have added to one or the other. So let's jump into the program really quick. And let me just show you where this is. So right now I'm in my All Photos view. And I'm going to go over here to the tools here on the very left sidebar, and I'm going to choose Photo DeDupe. Because I launched this from my All Photos view, right now it's looking at my entire library. And you can certainly do that, but I prefer to look at things in a little bit smaller batches. Right now I'm seeing 772 sets of duplicates, which are over 2,500 pictures. That's a little bit more than I want to try to tackle in one sitting. So I like to break things up into smaller chunks, and it just makes it much, much easier to manage. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my quick filters here on the left. If you're not seeing this panel, you can go ahead and click this icon here and say Open Sidebar. And then you have access to all of your quick filters. And I like to go by folder, but you can choose any one of these parameters that you want. And this is essentially going to narrow down what you're looking at. So I'm going to go by folder, excuse me, and go into Photos. And I'm going to take a look here and see if I have any duplicates in my 2025 folder. Thankfully, not yet. So I'm going to go ahead and click off of that. Let's take a look at 2024. Okay, there's one batch. I want to do a little bit more than that. So let's look at 2023. Not a whole lot there. All right, 2022, we've got a lot more here. So that gives me 14 sets, 28 files. For our purposes today, that is plenty for us to work with. So from here, what I can do is I can click on one of these images. If you have your info panel open, which you can open by clicking that little info on the right, you can learn more about this image. And you can click on them and see if there's any differences. There shouldn't be, but you can always double check that for yourself, because sometimes if you've never used this before, knowing is better than just assuming the program knows what it's doing. So it's always good to double check, especially as you're just getting to know this tool. From there, you can always double click on an image and you can toggle right and left. And again, you can see there's no difference between these two versions. So that is the way that that part works. The other part that you'll want to pay attention to, looks like somebody's saying they can't hear me. Are you having any trouble, Lori?
No, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, that's good. Dennis, I'm sorry you're having audio troubles. You might want to try turning up your speakers, or yeah, hopefully you can get that sorted out. I'm sorry you're having trouble. All right. So the other thing you'll want to pay attention to here is the scan scope. Since I've added just a part of my library, you can choose whether you want it to compare those particular folders to everything in your library, or just compare things in those same folders. I like to compare what's in the folders I selected to everything, because I might have duplicates someplace else other than what I selected. And that's what happens when you choose entire library. If you want to limit it, you can always say within results. That's completely up to you, but I'm going to choose entire library. From there, I'm going to go down here to the bottom right and take a look at auto mark. And auto mark gives you a lot of different parameters that you can prioritize as to what you might want to get rid of. This doesn't actually get rid of anything, but it does go ahead and check things that it thinks might be the best ones to get rid of. I do find that the defaults work really well. So typically if I've been here, I'll go ahead and restore the defaults, but you can say, you know what, I don't want to take into consideration these things, and you can turn them off. You can choose whether it's a yes or no. And you can even grab these handles here on the right and you can drag and drop them. Again, I'm going to click Restore Defaults. And the other thing I wanted to show you here really quick, I'm going to click out of that, is that I'm going to glance here. You can see at each description of the pictures where the path is for these different, these different images. And let's say this one here, I've got it in my Photos folder, and then it's in a dated folder. That is the path that I want to prioritize. And I'm going to have several here in this Lightroom Mobile Photos. This is the one I want to deprioritize, so I can also tell AutoMark which folder path I prefer to either keep or get rid of. So I'm going to go here to AutoMark, and I'm going to choose Add a folder duplicates may be in. And I've already found this Lightroom Mobile's folder, and I'm going to go ahead and select that. And I'm going to choose that I want those to be removed. So let me go ahead and choose that again. I accidentally clicked something I wasn't supposed to. Select, and I want to choose remove. And I'm not sure why that keeps jumping out of there. 1 second. Looks like there might be a bug. And there we go. That's what I wanted it to do. Maybe I wasn't quite on the remove there. So what I'm doing here is I've selected this folder, and I want AutoMark to mark the ones in this folder to be removed. So now I'm going to go ahead and say Run AutoMark. And that's going to give me these options here that it has already gone through and pulled the ones that it thinks I should get rid of. Typically, this does a really good job. Question here we have from John Crowley, what does conflicting data mean? So this means that inside of the metadata, there are some differences. So with this one here in particular, we've got conflicting data, and below it lists albums. This one here that's a copy is not inside of an album. This one here that does not say copy, this is inside of an album. Anything here, conflicting data, it's going to show what is conflicting. So this one here has an XMP file, this one does not. That just means that one of these images has something different in the metadata than the other. And the cool thing about this is once I go ahead and say delete marked, it's going to give me the option here to merge that metadata into the one that I'm keeping. So you're not going to lose that data. It just means that one of those pictures has something different than the other, or one has something in a metadata field that the other one doesn't. So here I've selected 14 files. It tells me how much space I'm going to free up on my computer. I do want to merge that metadata. You can always uncheck that if you want to, but typically I don't see any reason why you would do that. So keep that checked and say delete files. And I've now gone through and cleaned up 414 gigabytes of space on my computer and my hard drives. So thank you. You guys just helped me do a little bit of cleanup of my own library. And that in a nutshell is how photo DeDupe works. So next, let's go ahead and move on to photo DeClutter. Now, photo DeClutter can be used to find what we call similar images, anything that's taken within a short time frame. What this is really designed for is locating images that are taken in a burst. So let's say your kid is running down the soccer field and they're heading towards, trying to make a goal, and you take 15 frames all in very quick succession. You just sit there and hold down that shutter button. Well, maybe not all of those 15 frames are worth keeping. What photo DeClutter does is group them together so you can choose which one or ones are the ones worth keeping. So there's also auto mark options inside of photo DeClutter that can help you locate the ones that are blurry, have eyes closed, are under or overexposed, and they match based on the aspect ratio, the camera model, and again, like I said, the time frame in which they were captured. So let's go ahead and jump into photo DeClutter. And again, I'm here in all photos. I'm going to go down here to my tools, and we're going to choose photo DeClutter. I'm going to turn off those filters that I had earlier. And let's go ahead and take a look. So again, it's finding a lot of things. I take a lot of burst mode images. Some of them are action. Some of them are bracketed images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a specific folder that I know was action. Those are going to be ones that I can look through very easily and say, these are ones worth keeping. These ones are not so good. I don't need to waste hard drive space with these. So I'm going to go here into 2025. And earlier this year, I went to an event called a horse trial, which is show jumping and other cool stuff. And I took a lot of pictures of horses doing cool things. Well, as you're doing burst mode, doing some sort of sporting event, typically you're going to get one or two images in a set that are really cool, and then the rest of them are kind of they're not really worth keeping. So I've now selected just this one folder, and up here at the top you see it has match aspect, so that's making sure that they're both either horizontal or vertical, matching it for the same camera. So let's say you're bringing in pictures from both your big camera and your cell phone. This is going to make sure that it's using the same camera, so it's not going to match something that you took with your cell phone with what you took with your big camera. If you want to turn that off, you certainly can. And this one here is your time frame. So you can choose how long of a burst you might have taken. By default, it is set to 2 seconds, but you can change that. For me, I usually, my bursts are probably 5 seconds or less. So I'm going to change that to 5 seconds. You'll notice this did a little refresh, and some of those groups got a little bit bigger. It pulled in more frames that fit within those parameters. So from here, again, very similar to working with photo DeDupe, you can see the path for your picture here. You can see a little bit more information about it down below. If you want to see the batch here, you can see there's that one or that one. Neither of these are actually all that great, but I think that one is definitely less interesting than this one. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this one to get rid of. So let's go ahead and go on to the next batch. And this is the way I like to do it. In DeClutter, it's really a lot more important to use your own personal judgment, because with images like this, what AutoMark finds might not be what you actually value. So I go through these kind of one by one and decide what is worth keeping. And I say all three of those are actually not too bad. So let's go on to the next batch. And, those are all pretty cool too. This one here, we've got a few more images. Yeah, those are all kind of neat. So again, you don't have to get rid of them. all of them. That one I think is pretty cool. This one, there's so much of the horse obstructed. I'm going to go ahead and mark that one to get rid of. And then again, it just auto forwards you to the next batch, and you can go ahead and make those calls as you see fit. This one, again, I think, you know, it's got all the hooves off the ground. That's pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and keep that. And again, you can just go through these images and choose which ones you want to get rid of. Now let me go ahead and click back here to the grid and talk a little bit about the auto mark options you do have here. These work really well if you're photographing people for the most part, because this uses the AI smart tags that are built into your images, and it can find things that it marks as blurry, having eyes closed, smiling or not smiling, under or overexposed, if you've already marked it as a reject, or a low rated 1 or 2 star. You can also click on the settings here, and this lets you adjust the AI sensitivity. So if you're detecting things that are blurry, if you know it only has a really small spot in that picture that's in focus because you have a shallow depth of field, you've blurred out that background, but your subject is in focus, you might want to make this more accurate. If you want something that, you have a bunch of pictures that are super blurry, go ahead and make that less accurate. That is completely up to you. You can go ahead and click apply, and you can change those parameters for each and every one of these. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and click run auto mark, and it's going to go ahead and pick those images that it thinks fits those categories. Unlike DeDupe, it's not going to necessarily select one for every group. Some groups are going to have nothing selected because nothing in this group fits those parameters. So again, like I said earlier, photo declutter requires a little bit more personal input, because what you value and what you are trying to get out of a photograph is going to be really unique to you. It's a lot harder to tell with a similar image what makes a good photo, whereas with an exact duplicate, you don't need more than one exact duplicate. So that's in a nutshell how to use photo declutter. It's a great tool for cleaning things up, and if you've done anything where you have a lot of burst mode photos, I do encourage you to give that a try. All right, so moving on here to the cleanup quick collections. These are really helpful groupings that are built into Mylio Photos to help you find things that you might want to get rid of. So the ones that I want to highlight today are the camera cleanup. This one helps you find things that have blurry or eyes closed, things that need to be organized. This brings up recent photos. I don't remember if it's the last 30 days or 90 days of photos that are both unrated and unflagged. So you can go through and mark the ones that need to be marked. There's also review for cleanup. This shows images that have low ratings. So anything that is a low rating with a 1 to 2 star or that you've marked as a reject. Chances are you can throw those away. And then your screenshot cleanup. I think this one's really helpful because I don't know about you, but I accidentally take screenshots on my phone way more often than I probably should. And I don't even necessarily realize it. They end up in my camera roll, which then ends up in Mylio. And I don't want those there. I want to get rid of those. So Mylio helps you really quickly find those. So let's take a look at a couple of these. The ones I use the most here are going to be review for cleanup and the screenshot cleanup. So let's start with screenshot, and I'm going to jump back over here into Mylio. We're going to close out of photo declutter, and I'm going to go ahead and close up my quick collections. Let's close this up over here, and I'm here in the all photos view. Let's go ahead and open up our sidebar, and up here at the top we have our quick collections. That's what this little icon right here is. And you can create custom quick collections, but some of these other ones are already in here for you. So let's start with screenshot cleanup. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. And you'll notice I've already done a pretty good job at keeping these cleaned up, because whenever I see one of these that I don't want to keep pop up in my feed, I just delete it. So most of the rest of the screenshots in here are stuff that I actually want to keep. Like for instance, earlier this week, we had a little earthquake here in Southern California. So not so little actually. And I took screenshots when it first came in. So initially it was rated at a 6.0 and it was pretty quickly downgraded to a 5.2. Those are screenshots that I find pretty interesting and just like a point of history in my life. I'm going to keep those, but you can go through and take a look. Here's some other ones that I've taken of class schedules. That has some important information I want to keep. This one here was a screenshot from a video because I was trying to understand how to put these little clips in my backpack. I know how to do that now. I can delete this one. I'm going to go ahead and just say delete from all devices and get rid of that. The rest of these here, let's take a look. This one here, I did a screenshot of a coupon code. I don't need that anymore. I don't plan on buying it. It's probably expired anyway. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So that's how I do that. This one here, I screenshotted this little message from my brother. It's very precious to me. Absolutely keeping that. So you don't want to necessarily go through and just blanket get rid of all your screenshots. There might be stuff in there that you think is important, but this is a good way to pull them all together and get rid of the ones that are no longer necessary. Now you'll notice here up at the top that part of this filter is that it is only looking at my Apple Photos. If you have other screenshots in your library, maybe you brought some in from the desktop of your computer and so forth, what you can do is you can go ahead and check this off, go ahead and click the X, and now you'll be seeing the screenshots from your entire library, or rather everything that's a PNG file, because most screenshots are saved as PNGs. So you can then go through these and see if there's anything else that you want to get rid of and clean up. And I think most of this is stuff that I actually want to keep, so let's go ahead and move on. So that's how you clean up screenshots. I think this is a really cool and helpful tool. I'm going to go ahead and click out of that, and let's take a look at another screenshot or another quick collection here. And this is the one called Review for Cleanup. What this does is it automatically filters your library to find anything that is, it says the flag -1 is anything with a reject flag or a 1 or 2 star rating. And so these are all the images that I have in my library that either have a 1 star or a reject flag. And this is all stuff that I probably can get rid of. Now, when I mark something with a reject flag, it's because I'm not quite ready to delete it. If I'm ready to delete it, I know it's junk, I'll just click delete on the keyboard and get rid of it. When I mark something as a reject, I'm usually being a little bit more thoughtful in the process. When I go through and clean these up, I also want to be thoughtful. So what I'm going to do here is let me grab an image here, and I'm going to go ahead and view this in the folder. Before I do that though, I'm going to click this little link. And what this does is it tells Mylio to hold this filter across different views. So I'm going to click the link. And then if I go over here and say show in folder, now I'm seeing only the ones from that folder. And I can click the X on my keyboard to re-preview that image and go, okay, yeah, I remember, flagging all those as rejects. I actually don't need any of those. So I can go up here to organize and delete rejected photos. That tells me I'm getting rid of 4 photos. This is permanent, delete from all devices. And now I've cleaned up those images. I can then switch back over here to my all photos and go and take a look at a few more images and a few more groupings. Let's take a look at this one here. Same thing, I've got that link still on. Let's go ahead and say show in folder. And I can take a look here. I can click the X key if I want to see what that looked like before. Yeah, these are not great images. I think most of them are blurry. Yeah, these can all go away. So I'm going to go up here to organize and choose delete rejected photos. And that's going to get rid of those 8 items. Again, now they're gone. So that's how I prefer to go through and get rid of my rejected images. I could sit here and I could select all of these and just click delete if you're confident that these are all bad. But like I said, I like to be a little bit more thoughtful with that process. So I do like to look at the ones that are in a specific folder from a specific day before I go ahead and just blanket get rid of them. So those are 2 that I really like. The other ones that I mentioned are also here in the quick collections list. Like you've got camera cleanup. You can take a look at all the selfies you've taken. If you take a lot of selfies and you might need to clean those up, you can do that as well. But there's lots of cool stuff in here. So I do encourage you to check that out. All right. So those are 3 of the ways that I would suggest going through and doing some cleanup in your library. Going forward, I do recommend building a continuous habit of cleaning these things up. So set a reminder for yourself either monthly or quarterly to go in and take care of some DeDupe, some DeClutter, clean out those screenshots and accidental shots. And by doing a little bit at a time, let's say you set a 15-minute or a 30-minute timer, you're just going to go in and clean up what you can in that 15 or 30 minutes. Those little efforts can make a really big difference over time. So when you do this, you focus on a specific task, like let's just review the pictures from the last 90 days, or let's just run DeDupe or DeClutter on this one folder. Clean out those screenshots and so forth, and that's going to make a big difference in keeping things tidy as you move forward. You can certainly wait for spring to do this all at once, but things become a little bit daunting that way when you do that. So I do recommend keeping it a little bit at a time as you move forward. So with that, I want to go ahead and move into questions. and see what you guys have for me today. So let's go ahead and take a look at the chat. And I see that Lori's been sharing lots of helpful links. So if you would like any more information about the different topics that I talked about, we have manual articles, we have videos, we have all sorts of stuff that go more in depth on each one of these things that you can definitely go learn more about. So let's see here. We talked about the question that John had. Perfect. And Robin says, thanks for this good reminder. I'm so glad that was helpful. I know these are things that a lot of you are already very familiar with, but sometimes the reminder can be very helpful. And if you haven't used a specific tool in a while, it's not a bad thing to go back and revisit it, because somehow I still end up with duplicates in my library, even though I've run DeDupe bunches of times, because I bring different things in from different sources, and sometimes those duplicates get in there. So just having this regular habit of cleaning things up really makes a huge difference. All right, looks like Edward, you have your hand up. Feel free to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I just made a big project for my grandson, putting pictures together in an album for him.
Okay.
But there's a large number of them. I started to go run dedupe, but then it said it would get rid of any photos. Will it get rid of them
Mm-hmm.
only out of the album, or will it get rid of them out of the library?
So when you launch DeDupe, it will respect the view that you're in. So if you're in an album, it's only going to look at those images. So you should see a pill at the top of the screen that indicates that a filter is on looking at just that album. But if you go through and you mark things to get rid of, and you say delete from library, that is a permanent delete, and that deletes it from your library and all of your devices.
Okay, okay. Um, then what? Just click on one of them and say remove from album.
Yeah, so I mean, let's go ahead and go into an album here. I'm not sure that I have many of these that we're going to have too many dupes, but let's take a look. Let's jump into, which one do I have a lot of pictures in? Let's go into this one. So from this view, I'm in my portfolio album. Let's see if this will work. I'm going to go ahead and click on this and say photo dedupe. So it's looking at everything in my portfolio. You can see that's what's selected. I don't have any duplicates in that particular one. So let's try something else. Let's go here. Go by album. And I'm going to turn that one off. And let's see if any of my albums have duplicates in them. I'm not sure that they do, but you can see that it does respect which view you start from. Yeah, most of these are pretty clean here. The ones that make it into albums, I've already done a pretty good job of keeping tidy. But yes, if you were to go here from photo dedupe, select something and you say delete marked, that deletes it from your library, that deletes it from everywhere. So I'm not quite sure what you mean, what to do next. So can you elaborate a little bit? Because if your goal is to make this album for your grandson, but you got rid of that duplicate, I think that's probably you just go on and work on the next batch of pictures.
Um, what's the best course? I click on that image and say remove from album, or does that opportunity come up?
When you're in dedupe, no. If it's so there's you might be able to right click on it here in the grid and choose remove from album. I'm not sure, since I don't have one here in an album that I can look at that isn't actually a duplicate. So if you right click on it, you might have the option to just remove from album. But like I said, if you choose move marked or delete marked, this is a library wide
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
option.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right. I'll figure it out.
All
Thanks.
right. You're welcome. All right. What other questions? Harold, you got your hand up.
Yeah, could you go over and dedupe the
Mm-hmm.
business about folders where duplicates can be in? Because sometimes what I'll do is I'll have the basic folder and then I want to put them into an output folder for, printing or sending to a book, and I want to keep both of those. And the other thing that I have a problem with dedupe is I really want to get rid of those duplicates that are marked -1, dash one. And sometimes it doesn't always want to do that. It's picking the other photograph.
So it's probably because something in that list that's a higher priority is causing it to choose the other one. We can take a look at that in a second. Your first question, though, was that you have actual duplicates purposely, like you have two different folders. One is for output and publication, and you don't actually, you want to actually just exclude those. You
Right.
don't want those to be considered. What you could do is you could go ahead and, let's say you're looking at all photos right now, but you want to exclude stuff that's in Apple Photos. So let me go ahead and pin that. And then you can right click on this and say exclude. And then it should pull those out of the results.
Got it. Okay. No, that's perfect. Yeah.
And then for your other question, if you go ahead and choose auto mark, there is the option down here for file name does not end in -12. So what I would take a look at then is the other options here that are above it. Something up here is causing those ones that are being marked the opposite of what you'd like to, because this is lower down in the list. So if this is really important to you, you can grab this
Oh,
and then move it up here to the top of the list.
too
And
easy.
then that will be the first parameter it looks at.
Got it. No, just didn't realize you could move them. Thank you.
Oh yeah, you can just grab and drag and drop those.
Like I said,
Personally, I find that the defaults work really well, but certainly everybody has a slightly different workflow. So like some people, maybe they don't use the color labels at all. So they're going to say, I don't want to, if I've accidentally hit a color label, I don't want that to be considered. We're going to move that to the bottom of the list.
Now, can you have more than one folder that duplicates can be in? Is that another way of doing that?
Oh, let's see here. Let's try to see if I can add. Yeah, you can add more than one. Yeah.
And then go down on the bottom and say there can be more than one. There's an option on there. There can be more than one.
So I'm not sure I understand that question. Can you explain?
The one of the options down there is wasn't there pick only one or something down there? Yeah,
Only keep one copy. That one can't be moved.
No, but you can turn it off.
Yes, you can turn it off.
So then you could have things in two folders.
Yeah, I would. Well,
If you put photos of duplicates can be in. Although I like your method of excluding a folder.
I think excluding the folder is going to give you what you want, because I'm honestly not sure the purpose of this one here, because the goal with DeDupe is to get down to one, ideally one of a particular image, because most people for most purposes don't need that. I think that excluding the folder is going to give you what you want. This may actually make DeDupe not very functional.
Yeah. No, because I've tried that with two folders and keep only one, and it doesn't work. So I like
Gotcha.
the way better. Thank you. I always learn something from you. I just tune in and thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Looks like there haven't been any other comments in the chat. Is there anybody else who has questions today? All right, if there's nothing else, just a quick reminder for those of you who maybe popped in a little bit late. Next week, there will be no live Q&A and no coffee break. I will be at a conference all week. I'm going to be working with photo managers at the Photo Managers Conference. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, I'll come back with some good intel on, how to even better organize things. Conferences are always such a great place to learn, and I'm really looking forward to that. But because I'm going to be there, no live Q&A, no coffee break next week. The following week, we will pick right up where we left off. And on May 2nd, our coffee break topic will be how to tell where your originals are stored. So if you've ever had any question on how to figure out where the originals are, that will be the session for you. Hope you'll join us. Otherwise, have a great week next week. And if you have questions, please feel free to pop them into the community, into the Quick Questions group. I will be checking that throughout the week. So if anything comes up, you can always post there. And of course, you can always reach out to our support team if something isn't working as expected. So with that, I want to wish you guys a wonderful rest of your day. If you celebrate, happy Easter, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.